Warning, this video contains spoilers for the following shows. If you do not wish to be spoiled, or are fine with your current understanding of the multiverse, please click off. Everyone else, let's go. I've seen a bunch of videos over the years discussing the Easter eggs and references between like Gravity Falls, the House, Amphibias, and other shows, but I've never seen anyone make a comprehensive video about like the entire Gravity Falls multiverse and the implications of all these shows being connected. So I figured I'm going to change that today. This video you're watching, I'm going to explain the entire Gravity Falls multiverse and how it all connects and how it works. So without further ado, I'm Daniel. Let's hop in. This whole Gravity Falls multiverse theory kind of piggybacks off of another theory that I like to call the Shared Earth theory, or the SVT, so I'm going to briefly talk about that first. The SVT theory states that Gravity Falls, the Owl House, and Amphibia all take place on the same version of Earth, meaning that most, if not all of the characters, settings, and world-altering choices are connected, which honestly isn't too crazy of an idea depending on like how much you've watched the shows or how much you've interacted with this type of media, but for the uninitiated, you might not understand some of it, so let me just go through pretty quickly. There are many well-known Easter eggs and references that connect Gravity Falls and the Owl House, and a bunch of small ones. Big ones would be like Ford's journal, including a page about the Boiling Isles, wanted poster for Six-Fingered Man, being Ford, popping up in the Boiling Isles itself, Albert in the crawl space in Lost Legends, as well as Ida pretending to be a person named Marilyn while she goes into the human world, Marilyn being the name of Stanley's ex-wife that he got married to in Vegas for a day, that we find out about on the DVD commentary. Smaller things would be like journal appearances of creatures and like the journal appearances of itself. Amphibia connects to the Owl House because of the one episode where Camila is like cooking, she sees a missing person's report about Anne on her like smart device thing, as well as in the one Halloween episode in the third season of the Owl House. There's a guy dressed like Grq'w. Amphibia also connects to Gravity Falls because of journal appearances and some Bill Cipher stuff, and the fact that Stanley and Seuss have like kind of Amphibia alternate universe counterparts in Amphibia, but can't really talk about that until later. Star vs. the Forces of Evil, however, does not take place on this shared Earth. Despite what a whole bunch of people want to say online, it is not the same Earth. This is mainly proven by the fact that in the finale, Star and Marco kind of, cleave Earth and Muni together, and when you look at the parts of the other shows that take place, like that would take place like after the years of 2015, that's just not happening in the other ones. So, and as well, Rick and Morty also doesn't take place on this Earth, even though it is connected to Gravity Falls through stuff like Stan's mug and pen ending up through Rick's portals, and many connections and Easter eggs between Rick Sanchez and Stanford. Parallel dimensions are like near identical versions of a universe with key differences that set them apart. Like in one universe, the moon landing might be fake, and in another one, mankind descended from apes, like in Planet of the Apes. Alternate realms are kind of different, kind of weird, because they sort of exist either within the same universe or they're connected. Like they could be a planet, but they could also be like a in-between realm. They usually require some sort of portal travel or some magic, kind of like the 9 realms from Marvel, but also not. It's hard to explain. Other examples would be kind of like the magic realm from Star Versus, also Muni from Star Versus, the Nightmare Dimension from Gravity Falls, stuff like that. I like to think of the Boiling Isles as an alternate realm because it's not like an entire universe, and it's called like a realm, and it's directly connected to Earth via like the Titan's blood mixing with water and creating portals, and then just overall Titan magic. It's a separate connected realm, but it's not like an alternate universe of another realm. Amphibia, on the other hand, is a parallel dimension. It's essentially the same as Earth, except the continents are giant lily pads, and instead of apes evolving to become the dominant species, dominant humanoid species evolved from like amphibians. Kind of like Planet of the Apes, except with giant herons for some reason, and the bugs can either be really tiny or really massive. The universe of Starverses is sort of a weird one. You'll see stuff like tourists from Gravity Falls existing as like cameos of themselves, looking slightly different but mostly the same. It's like a Bill Cipher poster hanging up in the wall, and I believe Marco has a several times poster on his locker. And so most people would think, oh, well, that's a connection, you know, they take place on Earth. But, you know, then again, like the end of the show, it can't be the same Earth. So then next people are thinking, well, then is it an alternate universe? Because, you know, it's similar, but obviously it's not like the same universe, but it could definitely be an Earth where one big thing changed, because they do have that similar history and they do have that connection. So yeah, it technically is an alternate dimension, but there is something else that is complicating it, and it is really frustrating. Going back to the finale of the show, Star uses the whispering spell to destroy all magic from the multiverse, also kind of killing like a lot of the creatures that rely on magic, like billions of them. But when we cut back to Amphibia, the Owl House, Gravity Falls, Rick and Morty, stuff like that, magic's fine. Magical creatures are fine. So that can't be possible, because Star got rid of all the magic in all of the multiverse, meaning that all these other shows wouldn't have magic. So now we have two kind of contradicting points. It's an alternate universe, but it's also not part of the multiverse. How does that make sense? Like, when researching this, it took me all my brain power, all 2 brain cells to figure this out. Like, I spent way too long trying to figure it out, and then I remembered there's still one more character / show we need to talk about. Rick and Morty as a show, it has direct connections to Gravity Falls and the other shows by proxy. And I kind of discussed it a little bit earlier, but these things would be like Rick's portal connecting to Stan's portal, Bill Cipher memory vial and Morty's mind blowers, Rick's message on Ford's wanted poster, and Rick S's memories being for sale in the crawl space market in Lost Legends. And you're probably like, oh, well, so what? How does this have anything to do with Star versus the Forces of Evil, the thing we were just talking about 10 seconds ago? Well, let me explain something. The central finite curve is sort of where it all clicks together. The central finite curve is sort of explained in the show as a multiversal firewall that the Rick we know as C-137 created to trap his multiversal variant Rick Prime. It's a spiral of universes that have Rick Sanchez as its smartest person in the entire universe. The other universes that take place outside of the central finite curve, they don't have a Rick Sanchez that's the smartest person in the universe, which would mean that shows like the shared Earth of Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and the Owl House, they all have their own version of Rick Sanchez, potentially their own version of Morty Smith, as well as Amphibia itself would likely have a frog variant of Rick Sanchez. And that would also sort of mean that the universe of Star versus the Forces of Evil likely doesn't have a Rick Sanchez. Either that or a Rick Sanchez that is not the smartest person in the universe, which would explain why it's not connected to the multiverse. But the fact that its world is parallel to the world of Gravity Falls means that it must have once been part of the multiverse before Rick Sanchez created the central finite curve, which would have kicked it out, which would explain why a lot of the versions of history in both Star Versus and Gravity Falls are the same, up to the point, say 30 years ago, when Rick Sanchez created the central finite curve. It was part of it, and then Rick cut it off, and then so it was not the same. So all of its events could happen and not affect the rest of what we consider to be the Gravity Falls multiverse. Essentially, it was part of it, and now it's not. So it was the same, but now it's not. And the reason probably being no Rick Sanchez. This is the part of the video where we get more kind of skeptical and hypothetical, because Rick's actions would have some big ripples throughout both the multiverse and the Star versus multiverse, so the rest of the omniverse. Beings like the multiversal guardian from Amphibia, or the axolotl, and the time baby and the time cops from Gravity Falls, they might be stuck inside the central finite curve, unable to see the timelines and the alternate universes and realms outside of the central finite curve. But it also would have protected all these universes inside the curve from the effects of the whispering spell. The spell that, got rid of all the magic in that part of the multiverse. Rick might have also inadvertently trapped Bill Cipher in the central finite curve as well by cutting off those extra universes. Bill Cipher definitely would have been annoyed by the fact that the smartest man every universe inside the multiverse is the same, alcoholic, antisocial 70-year-old man who wastes his life doing drugs and partying with his grandson. Which honestly is probably why he settled for Ford Pine, the slightly less intelligent, more naive, probably second smartest man in the Multiversal universe. I say both because Bill Cipher was contacting all versions of Ford in alternate dimensions, including, we see in the Curiosity, House and Amphibia, that they also have Bill Cipher posters. So Bill Cipher was likely contacting Ford in the Amphibia universe as well. Also, quick side note, the fact that we don't see Ford or any of the Pines twins or Wendy in the Amphibia universe probably means that Amphibia, Frog Ford, never came back. So, fun thing to think about. One last little, mini theory thing. In the episode of Rick and Morty where we see evil Morty go outside of the curve, everything's in utter chaos and destruction, all that. It is likely that all that chaos and destruction is the effects of the whispering spell. You get rid of a whole bunch of magical creatures all at once, and source of magic and dimensional travel all at once is going to cause chaos. As well as we see in that episode, we see a whole bunch of people finally creating Portal. They're each the smartest person in their universes, and they wouldn't really need dimensional travel this late in the overall omniversal timeline if they didn't previously have portal travel and it was taken away. That's sort of my little headcanon theory. I know it's utterly bonkers and doesn't make sense, but I figured I'd just get it out there. Okay, quick recap TLDR version for the people who wanted to skip ahead. Gravity Falls, Amphibia, the Owl House, essentially they share the same Earth. The Boiling Isles is a connected realm. Amphibia is an alternate universe, nightmare dimension, connected realm, stuff like that. Gravity Falls and the Owl House and Amphibia and Rick and Morty all take place within the central finite curve. Star versus the forces of evil isn't part of the central finite curve. It's somewhat of a parallel dimension to Gravity Falls, but not anymore, because of Rick separating the central finite curve from the rest, and every universe inside the central finite curve has Rick Sanchez, that is the smartest man in the universe, which would also make Stanford Pines not the smartest man in the universe, which make him at least the second smartest man in the universe. And lastly, beings like the Axolotl, Time Baby, the Time Cop, Valeriana from Amphibia, creatures like that, like Bill Cipher, all stuck within the central finite curve, likely. I don't know if, the Axolotl is essentially God, and the Guardian of the Multiverse is essentially a demigod, so maybe they're not stuck, but the rest is. But yeah, that's essentially the Gravity Falls verse theory, as I like to call it. And honestly, I understand why everyone else hasn't made a video on this. It is very convoluted, time consuming. I did my best to get into 10-minute video. I cut out so much and then only read half of my scripts. This could have been a 1 to 2 hour video. I'm not doing that. Leave that for the round table or cartoon universe or stuff like that. Yeah, maybe I'll bug Kevin. Depends on how I'm feeling. But with that being said, that's all for me. Have a good day or else, and trust no one. Also, just wanted to say, my first actual video. Sorry, it's kind of crappy. Sorry, my voice sucks. Yeah, I'd say stick around for more, but I'm kinda lazy. Okay, I'm yapping. I already said bye, but time to say bye again. Bye.